The crisp morning air filled the halls of Lincoln Middle School as students shuffled to their classrooms, backpacks slung over their shoulders and chatter echoing through the corridors. Inside her sunlit classroom, Ms. Elena Jackson prepared for the day ahead. Elena was a highly respected teacher in her early 40s, known for her warm demeanor and her ability to inspire even the most challenging students. Her caramel complexion and braided hair framed her kind eyes, which always seemed to hold a spark of resilience. Today, she was focused on her favorite subject, history. Elena's husband, David, had dropped her off at school that morning as he always did. The two were a power couple in the community. David was a prominent civil rights lawyer who had gained national attention for his work defending marginalized communities. Their love story was well known in the area, and while their life wasn't without its challenges, they faced everything together as a team. David and Elena had two children, a 9-year-old boy named Noah and a 12-year-old girl named Ava. Both kids were bright, kind, and looked up to their parents immensely. Ava, in particular, admired her mom's work as a teacher and often spoke about how Elena inspired her to stand up for what was right. The bell rang, signaling the start of class. Elena greeted her students, diving into a discussion about civil rights movements and the importance of standing up for what's right. As she moved through the room, engaging students with thought-provoking questions, a shadow loomed outside her classroom door. Officer Daniels, a relatively new member of the local police force, walked into the school building with purpose. He was tall, with a square jaw and an authoritative presence that seemed to demand attention. Officer Daniels had received an anonymous tip that morning about a suspicious woman allegedly involved in illegal activities who was working at Lincoln Middle School. Though the tip lacked credibility, Officer Daniels decided to investigate without much thought. As Officer Daniels approached the front office desk, he was met by the school receptionist, who was visibly confused. "Officer, how can I help you?" Ms. Joel asked, trying to mask her concern. Officer Daniels got the information about Elena's classroom location. He had demanded the information from the school's front office. He presented himself as being there on official police business and claimed that the matter was urgent to see Elena. The receptionist, intimidated by his authoritative demeanor and badge, reluctantly provided the information. Principal Harris had not yet been made aware of the situation when Officer Daniels started to walk towards Elena's classroom. Ms. Joel quickly alerted the principal, Mr. Harris. The principal rushed to meet Officer Daniels in the hallway. "Officer, anything the matter?" Mr. Harris asked. The police officer stopped, though he was already close to Elena's classroom. "I am Officer Daniels. I received a tip about a teacher here who may be involved in some illegal activities," Officer Daniels said, his tone firm. Principal Harris raised an eyebrow. "I find that hard to believe. Our staff is exemplary." Officer Daniels didn't seem convinced. "I'd like to speak with Ms. Jackson." Without waiting for approval, Officer Daniels made his way towards the classroom as he barged into Elena's classroom. When he opened the door, all eyes turned toward him. Elena paused mid-sentence, surprised by the intrusion. "Can I help you, officer?" Officer Daniels stepped forward, his hand resting on his belt. "Ms. Jackson, I need you to come with me. There are some questions you need to answer down at the station." Elena's students gasped, their young faces filled with confusion and fear. "What's going on?" Elena asked, her voice calm but firm. "I'm placing you under arrest," Officer Daniels announced, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. "For what?" Elena demanded, her tone now tinged with disbelief. "That'll be discussed at the station," Officer Daniels replied, motioning for her to stand up. The classroom fell into chaos. Students began protesting loudly, some even pulling out their phones to record the scene. "You can't do this," one student shouted. "Ms. Jackson didn't do anything wrong." Principal Harris rushed into the room, trying to defuse the situation. "Officer Daniels, this is highly inappropriate. Elena is one of our best teachers, and there's clearly been a misunderstanding." Officer Daniels ignored him, proceeding to cuff Elena in front of her horrified students. Elena, though shaken, maintained her composure. Kids, it's going to be okay, she said, trying to reassure them. Keep learning. Remember what we talked about, standing up for what's right. As Officer Daniels led Elena out of the classroom, students shouted in protest, their voices echoing through the halls. By the time they reached the parking lot, news of the arrest had already begun to spread. Parents, teachers, and even bystanders gathered, their phones recording every moment. Elena was placed into the back of the squad car, her mind racing. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong, but she couldn't help but feel the sting of humiliation. Officer Daniels drove in silence, occasionally glancing at her through the rearview mirror. When they arrived at the station, Elena was processed and placed in an interrogation room. Officer Daniels entered, holding a file that he claimed contained evidence against her. "You're accused of embezzlement and fraud," he said, his voice cold. Elena's jaw tightened. "That's ridiculous. I've done no such thing." Officer Daniels leaned in, his tone condescending. "People like you always think you can get away with things." Elena's eyes narrowed. "People like me?" Officer Daniels smirked but said nothing, leaving the room to review evidence. Unbeknownst to Officer Daniels, the community was already mobilizing. Elena's husband, David, received a call from Principal Harris, who explained the situation. Furious but composed, David immediately contacted his legal team and the local press. Within hours, the station was surrounded by protesters demanding Elena's release. David arrived at the station, his presence commanding. He walked straight to the front desk. "I'm David Jackson, Elena Jackson's attorney and husband. I demand to see her immediately." The officer at the desk hesitated, recognizing David from several high-profile cases. "Mr. Jackson, I'll let the sergeant know you're here." David was escorted to the interrogation room, where he found Elena sitting calmly. Her face lit up when she saw him. "David," she said, relief washing over her. "I'm here, Elena." "We're going to fix this," he assured her, his voice steady. Minutes later, Officer Daniels entered the room, unaware of who David was. "Who are you?" he asked dismissively. "I'm Elena's attorney, and her husband," David replied, his tone sharp. "And you've made a grave mistake." Officer Daniels faltered, realizing the situation was more complicated than he had anticipated. David pulled out a folder containing documents that disproved the allegations against Elena. "These charges are baseless, and you've arrested my wife without proper cause. This is not only unethical but illegal." As David continued to dismantle the case, the station's captain entered, looking flustered. "Mr. Jackson, may I have a word?" he asked. David followed the captain into another room, where they had a tense conversation. The captain apologized profusely, admitting that the tip was anonymous and unverified. "Officer Daniels acted on his own accord," he explained. The tip Officer Daniels received about Elena being involved in illegal activities was later revealed to be completely fabricated. The anonymous caller turned out to be a disgruntled former parent of one of Elena's students. The parent, upset over a disciplinary action Elena had taken months prior when their child was caught bullying another student, decided to take petty revenge. The call was placed late at night, and the caller deliberately painted Elena in a negative light, feeding Officer Daniels vague but alarming accusations about fraud and illegal dealings. Officer Daniels, already prone to snap judgments and implicit biases, acted on the tip without thoroughly investigating its credibility. David's expression was stone cold. "You'll release my wife immediately, and there will be a public apology. If not, I'll be filing a lawsuit for wrongful arrest and defamation." Within the hour, Elena was released, and the station held a press conference to apologize for the incident. Officer Daniels was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. As Elena and David left the station, they were met with cheers from the crowd outside. Elena hugged her students, who had joined the protest to the station with signs that read, "Free Ms. Jackson," and "Justice for Elena." Though shaken, Elena knew this was an opportunity to teach an even greater lesson. She and David organized a community forum to discuss racial profiling and the importance of accountability. The incident became a catalyst for change, leading to new policies within the police department and a broader conversation about systemic bias. Elena returned to her classroom, greeted with applause from her students. "What happened was wrong," she told them, "but we can use it to make things right. Change starts with us." After Elena was released and the public apology issued, it was made known to the public that the investigation into the anonymous tipster revealed a disgruntled parent as the source. This revelation deepened the community's outrage and served as a powerful example of how easily prejudice and personal vendettas could spiral into something harmful when left unchecked. The story of Elena and David Jackson became a symbol of resilience, love, and the power of standing up for justice, proving that even in the face of adversity, dignity and truth will always prevail. Although it is a painful experience certain people go through every day, even right now, somewhere, someone is somehow being confronted with bias. Officer Daniels faced significant consequences for his actions. The internal investigation revealed a pattern of racial profiling in his previous work. Officer Daniels was not only terminated from the police force but also faced legal action for his reckless arrest of Elena. The situation became a cautionary tale within the department, prompting mandatory reforms and extensive training to prevent similar incidents in the future. The entire ordeal brought David, Elena, and their children closer together. Ava and Noah, who had witnessed the public protests and media coverage, learned valuable lessons about resilience and the importance of fighting for justice. Elena and David used the experience as a teaching moment, not just for their kids, but for the community as a whole. Every now and then, policies are being made in various government and non-government institutions, conversations are being heard about racial profiling, mandatory and extensive trainings are organized, yet, it seems we aren't moving anywhere. Howbeit, let us continue to bring awareness to this, have these conversations, and hope for a better world. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to Home of Stories TV. And do not forget to turn on the notification bell for more inspiring stories. Drop your comments below, let us know your thoughts.